Hello and welcome to Pivot with PJ. This is your host PJ. Vivian, thanks for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you here with me in this episode. What is design for you?
Everybody is a designer. Somebody may solve a problem of.
I want to put a little bit of spotlight on the design as being the human in the center of the design process.
Never a designer who's delivering the experience.
Where do we draw the boundaries?
You can draw the boundaries by understanding the requirements shouldn't be collected single-handedly.
I'm PJ and I'm here to navigate the bends of the roads with you. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get on this ride together on Pivot with PJ.
Vivian, thanks for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you here with me in this episode of Pivot with PJ. Design, I think it's something that's intrigued me for a long time. I think that design is not necessarily a technical thing or a creative thing per se. I have this weird idea of design in my mind. To me, when I think of design, it feels like design is somewhat conceptually arranging parts of a system to make it useful. The system can be anything, whether it is life, whether it is building, or whether it is a piece of software. It's just arranging its parts in a way that kind of becomes useful. To me, that's how I see it. It can even be a thought or an idea. So essentially, to me, it feels like to design is to be human. So I want to hear from you, being a lifelong designer, you've thought it through, you've mentored so many designers and continue to do so. What is design for you, Vivian? Maybe that's a good place to start.
Thanks, PJ. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's probably one of my first public podcasts, or second one probably. But I'm really grateful to you for inviting me here. Good question. So let me put it from a perspective of a well-known, famous Nobel laureate who defined it pretty beautifully, and I think more or less on the lines of what you just said. So I'm talking about Herbert Simon, Herb Simon as he was known. He wrote a beautiful book as well, Science of the Artificial, long time ago. He said that to design is to devise courses of action aimed at changing existing circumstances into preferred ones. To simplify that is that everybody is a designer. Like somebody may solve a problem of fixing things in a process. Like if it takes 10 steps, you do it in 3 steps. So somebody would do it in the manner of how you are addressing the requirements of people, getting them to speak to you, making things comfortable, and making it easy. When you make things easier and into preferred situations, you put people into a comfort zone, be it working with kids, adults, teenagers, older people, working professional. It's all the same. So design, more or less, is the same thing that what you said. In other words, is making things uh, or systems together. You put them together for courses of action to change those into preferred ones. Uh, and
Hmm.
that is kind of designing. You're designing thoughts. You're designing places. Even religion uses it to design courses, or like these meditations, yogas. In the last few years, you've seen a lot of these mental health programs from people. Those are designed by understanding the needs of people. But the secret always lies that you design for people, always keeping them in the middle of those things. That's my
Right.
perspective. For a long time, almost all of my career has been towards designing things for people. I remember way back, if I may just give you an example, way back when I was 16 years old, me and my brother went on a cycle to build a business of our own in a summer holiday, and we went down this busy street in Pune city, uh, and we said we'll ask a couple of shops if we can make their shop experience better and more customers will walk in. So one of first shop said, "Hey, you guys are kids, run away, come on, get lost." Uh, but the second guy, that the shop that we made, he was a nice old gentleman. It was a street where gold jewelry, all these precious
Hmm.
jewelry stores were there. And I just asked that the gentleman, "Could we do your shop?" So he said, "You will do?" I said, "Yes, sir. We will try to do it." He said, "Okay, here's my window." So he gave me a 2 feet by 3 feet window, me and my brother. And we went out, looked, and he said, "Yes, we will do it." He said, "Make it good for Diwali, and if it works, then you can come and do every month, like that." Just sort of trust. And he He said, "How will you do?" So I said, "Would you give us some advance?" So first business, first project, got an advance, went and built that. He had a lot of good feedback for that. So cut the chase to 30 plus years later. I went a week or two ago to his place. Of course, the old gentleman passed away. His son also passed away, who was a very good friend of mine. And the older son kind of said, "I remember you, but faintly, and I don't remember your name." So I told him. Then he was saying, "Oh my God, you unearthed those beautiful days, and it was so nice." Uh, it was all about people then also, and it was
Hmm.
so I kept changing my business from physical to digital, early digital to complete digital now, to stay resilient and serve as a designer for people.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a very warm anecdote that you shared. And did you meet this older son in this trip, or recently?
No, I met him then. He had just
Ah,
married, but now his son, 30 years later, his son is his business partner. I couldn't meet the son, but he
ah,
was overwhelmed. He said, "We sold all the businesses. It was really nice." And I was close to his younger brother who passed away. He was
okay.
quite pivotal in a lot of work that we did together.
Hmm.
Massive amount,
Fantastic.
including designing stage shows and fashion shows for ramp walks, all kinds of
Wow.
things we did. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Very, very interesting. I think there is no part of life, facet of life that you haven't designed in a way. I don't think that would be an overstatement. Um, but Vivian, when I hear you talk about design, you're keeping the user like in the front and center, right? You call it human centered design, and that's your forte. When I think of human centered design, there are two humans that come to my mind: the user, who eventually benefits from what the design is going to accomplish, and then the designer himself or herself. Now I want to put a little bit of spotlight on the design as being the human in the center of the design process. What it takes to be in the mindset of a designer to be effective, to create more effective designs. What is a good designer?
Good design, of course, first is serving human beings, and in all sense, removing. It's like as motor driven or as automated a task can be. Like for example, when you close a door or open a drawer, you don't think I have to like put my hand down, hold that grip, pull it at a certain angle. You just don't think when you brush your teeth, for example, or you cycle or you do most of the activities. So that shouldn't change for the things that are around us, whether it is a software or wherever it is. Coming
Hmm,
back, you said two people, right? You said the user and the designer. I beg to differ there completely, even though I'm a designer and my fraternity may say, "What are you saying?" You're right. There is not complete truth in that. Reason being, there is the user and there's the user's environment. No, that's
yeah,
one. Second is there's a designer, and there are army of people behind to make that designer successful. The designer will only talk to the user as a researcher. Now those roles have changed into so many. Earlier there used to be one person doing so many all the jobs,
right.
but now there are different streams. So the designer as a persona of providing design would speak, generate information, get that, collect, do analysis. There's somebody who will make a design, physical, visual one to get
Hmm.
feedback. They will do a lot of talking, collecting information, behavioral patterns, blah, blah, all of those things. But there is a group of people who will enable those designs to be product like produced, production level,
Right.
test level, code level, finish level, engineering, so many things. So there are these group is called the stakeholders. There's an
Hmm.
entire army of people that deliver an experience. It's never a designer who's delivering the experience. That's a myth that
Right.
we carry even today very strongly. So
No, absolutely.
yeah,
I
so
fully with you on that. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I believe is the essence of completely delivering a good experience, because there are certain things that as a designer or as the design community say you must do these things, but is it really feasible? There are so many moving parts
Hmm.
and compliances or just probably not possible kind of things. So how do you turn around this? An engineering team would be able to tell that best. There are compliances to be met. There are certain things that
Hmm.
you want to do, but governance and compliance does not allow you for certain reasons.
Wonderful. I think I think this sense of inclusivity, right, is taking everybody along, all the stakeholders who are in a way impacted by the whole process, both from the side of designing and producing, and then from the side of consuming, and then there is all this environment that maybe positively or in some cases adversely impacted by what's been made, right? So I think this is too many factors. Where do we draw the boundaries, Vivian? I mean, when there's just so, like you said, we have to operate under constraints.
You can draw the boundaries by the requirements shouldn't be collected single-handedly. If you take a collective
Mm,
requirement of things, I said user environment. Now, user environment need not be just all the people and everything that a person does in a day in a life. For example, is one of the studies that people do to understand what a user does in a day in a life. But there are things that draw lines there also. There are things like, for example, when you're working with a design that is IP protected, like we work with some big brands of mobile phones and others that we can't talk about here on the show. But then those are restricted from IP point of view. So you do some studies which are closed door within a lab, which is creating the environment for user to test and do those things. We used to do back then in HP, a one-way
hmm
mirror, and watch them like the you see in the movies. But in literally the sense, the whole team sitting behind a one-way mirror glass. The users are brought in, they're told what's going to happen, and they're given this exclusive product which is not in the market to test. Market research
mm,
also does that, like focus groups and things like that. But this is one-on-one study on behavioral. Can you really use that product, or no? How do you function? What are the problems? And keep iterating and building those products. So to draw the line, it is basically again coming together as a team and then deciding, okay, these are the factors that we want to test. Watertight process, watertight methods of uh, getting people and not going all over the place and solving one problem at a time. One button probably, or one interaction, or one service issue, instead
mm.
of tackling everything, and slowly, brick by brick, building those experiences.
Wonderful. I think the essence is doing it incrementally.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah,
Paradigm shift doesn't get you. People get shocked and they abandon products. There are so many in the
yeah.
market. I know this has been spoken, like done to death kind of example, but maybe some people have not heard about it. Two, the top of design world designers. One designed a chair, the other designed a phone that everybody uses along with Steve Jobs. I'm not mentioning the designer's name; you'll get it. Uh, they came together and built a company, saying, "Okay, we know it all. We're going to build this product." And a $450 juicer was made. It's called Juicero, by the way. Was
Mm,
called Juicero, and it didn't last. The media just took pot shots at it and called them juiced out, and a whole lot of other things came out. The fact being that you cannot let go of people's feedback and the things, because many times we get overwhelmed by what we know and want to force those ideas. That's where
mm,
failure happens, and things don't work. So it's very important to test out those ideas and make small iterations. The fact of
mm,
iteration that you also talked about is very, very important from that perspective. We can look about Juicero. It is very big. It's a huge failure, and it happened. Most recently, a disaster also is the same fact. When people ignored, in this case, it was the engineering who ignored the researcher and the person who gave the feedback that it's not good, and
mm,
it was a little capsule that went down to search for the Titanic, and it
mm.
imploded, and all of the people disappeared and died. That was such a
Wow.
disaster for not testing the design or validating it correctly.
Mm, mm. So essentially, the approach, even though the goal might be to bring about a change, the approach has to be incremental, right? And in a way, the change has to be invisible to the
Yes,
user.
yes,
They shouldn't really know that things are changing around them, but kind of gradually
yes.
take them slowly, gently to a better future. I think
True.
is the essence of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we're not scared when we are in, well-tested product. Like we take a flight, we go on a boat, we go in a
Mm,
car. They iteratively, maybe they make some UI changes or visual changes, but the engine, the core, safety, security, and all of that is very incrementally changing. Same is for the idea. Both the examples I told you were untested, uh,
dramatic shifts.
yeah, dramatic and paradigm shifts, and they were disasters. It's always the case.
Wow. Hmm. Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. I've always wondered something radically different would pique curiosity and create interest, but I think this is the essence of it, right? Doing it gradually and taking through that change in a way. That's not too visible and in your face for
Yeah.
the consumer.
I can give you one more example, very famous one. I think everybody knows that example too. There is one side where you don't do incremental paradigm. There's one where a company or a product that is being done in this manner of iterative suddenly stops saying that, okay, we know it all and we're going to now rule the world.
Hmm.
So, the story of Nokia, for example, uh,
Right.
it
Or
stopped this.
BlackBerry.
Yeah, BlackBerry. Yeah, BlackBerry still is there in some security areas. Even Nokia's. But you're right. Those brands, uh, they were, they could have been part of the growth that happened, but they were disrupted, and that's the story of even today's every startup. They're disrupting
Hmm.
areas which uh, somebody ignored or overlooked and things like that.
Wow. Fantastic. And I want to kind of move
Shift.
to the second gear per se, right? Um, let's talk about the individual. I think we broadly talked about the impact of design on groups of people, the community itself, the user community. As an individual, how how can I, I've heard of design thinking. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So this again, you may get some negative remarks if you post this anyway, but I think I'm okay with the time and age in the design world to speak this out loud. Design thinking, when it was launched by IDEO and the Kelly brothers long time ago, was good enough. It taught the world how to think and use design as a way, and everybody is using it. Today morning, I interviewed a student from a particular college for internship, and blah blah, all of these things. And I saw that the process was design thinking. I said, "Oh, you're using design thinking?" I said, "No, no, this is our process." And anyway, not to argue, I left that student around. Coming back, design thinking is in today's time a little flawed from many perspectives, and that's the part people will not accept, many of them. The reason
Hmm.
being, when you're only thinking and you're debating and you're in this closed room or you're talking to some people and coming back, you have a lot of data insights. What about the part of implementing what you found out? I think most often design thinking, had a barrier there. We made a different perspective of that whole diagram actually. Uh, I could have shared it with you, or probably I'll share it with you later. It basically says that you do that part, but then you focus more on how will you implement the findings that you got. Literally going down to the nuts and bolts and the measurements of how you're going to measure that success of what you found out. So in design thinking, you talk to people, you do something called the divergence and convergence. It basically was borrowed from, though design thinking came before, it
Hmm.
iterated and it borrowed from the British Design Council's double diamond. There's a new
Hmm.
double diamond, by the way. What is the double diamond? Is basically you say you diverge and you converge on the problem that you're trying to solve. So you don't know where you started to a point where you know, okay, this is the problem you want to solve. Then you diverge and finding solutions, various options you try, iterate, test, talk to people, come back. Then you converge to finding a solution that you want to do and make that recommendation. This for this problem, unknown problem, we found out what the specific problem could be. Here are several unknown solutions we tried, and here is one that, or one or two that really works. There was another process that came into being called design sprint. It accelerated the design thinking into more actionable outputs. So basically, in 5 days, you could do all that design thinking you could do, but also test with real users and come to a conclusion that whether things will work or not work. Not taking months or years to figure out what you want to do. So design
Hmm.
sprint took the world by storm in 2016, up to even recent times, and help people grow. We are actually working with design sprint and design thinking and our own process in our studios in the US
Fantastic.
and here in India.
No, it makes sense. I think agile methodology, or
Yes.
all of these, um, y- you know, uh, approaches to bringing about change or creating something where you do it incrementally, test it incrementally, do it, test it. I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, is there an example that you can share with us, Vivian, about your design process? Maybe a product or a service or something that you built, designed, and built. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. So I can give you a government project or a consumer one, whichever you want.
Probably both. Love to hear both. They are very different worlds, so I think it'll be interesting how you approached.
Back in before 2019, we did a lot of government projects in India. So for example, Varanasi smart city or Gail gas for providing the gas at your home, or working with the defense to build a certain system for various use cases. Defense may not be
Mhm.
the appropriate thing I could talk in detail because of its privacy. But when we wanted to do, like, say, Gale Gas as an example, the teams, the product lead and the project leads, they actually went down to the streets, spoke to auto rickshaw people, people who put CNG in their cars, and the PNG at home, talk to users that how would you or what would you do, and the fears that they had, collected information from hundreds of people following the design thinking process, came back, and then we built and we went to the Gale head in Delhi, which Mahanagar Gas Nigam and Bangalore and almost all the states, the gas organizations report into Gale there as
Mhm.
different. So all the managing directors came and we presented our use case, finding information from real auto users, public and public transportation, at the same time personal vehicles, and also the information from users who had no idea, because you heard about that in Mumbai there is gas at home, or XYZ places there's gas at home, but not in Bangalore. So there was a lot of fears and things like that, and you have to make some modification to the gas instrument itself, that you use to ignite and cook your food. So when we got that feedback, we built prototypes. We did high fidelity prototypes, which were like the real deal, and help people understand how they save, what are the safety and security features, educating people, and that kind of helped build the first sets. And it was almost fully successful project, and now you can see it by like, cut the chase to 5 years later. There are lots of households in Bangalore which uses Gale gas and automobile. You
Wow.
can see the stations, gas stations where CNG is delivered to vehicles. So that project basically had government policymakers, companies that were as a consortium working together, and the local engineers who dig the pipelines and place the gas and things like that to meet the end users' needs, and the strategic guys on which area to be tackled first, which area to be tackled next, and all of this coming together on a technology platform, very very robust, with little or no downtime. It was 99.99% perfect.
Wow.
And this is one use case which I'm pretty proud of, because uh, after the initial strategy, me and the other leaders, we just stepped back. We empowered the next line of people, and those empowered the others, and they all would go to the streets, come back together, do the design thinking in the room, closed room, in a nice AC room, but go out in the streets, come back, understand real world situation, take pictures, blah blah, all of that, and come back and say, hey, we thought this was the way to solve, but here is some real world problems, and
Mm.
then finally made it happen.
Amazing.
In Varanasi, it was like, booking of the cards, making the city smart, controlling of the cameras to the control room of the police, helping the police do analytics on the information and what really is happening, city management and things like that. So that was also an
Mm.
interesting project that we did.
Fantastic. And I presume either the common thing about the government project or the consumer, you start with a goal. I think you kind of first thing is to align with the high level goal, where what is it that you're trying to accomplish with the sponsor or the leader of the project from the client side, and of course you align with them, and then you start your process, right? How important is to have the clarity of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, the idea of what end looks like.
So in these two examples that I gave, the clarity was a little ambiguous because we had to do a lot of stuff. So clarity
Hmm.
is important, but sometimes, as a I wouldn't say as a designer, but as the owner of the solution, a group of people need to find out what, because your requirements may be very high level, 30,000 feet or 50,000, even from the moon probably. So to get that, you have to go and be in the shoes. So there have been times, like there's a time, I'll give two more examples, quick ones. I had to find out these users in thick snow in outskirts in a place in Paris, outside of Paris, and it started snowing and raining, and I literally froze in my shoes. The socks were stuck to my feet. The feet had become blue, and
Whoa.
I had to deal with a lot of physical, the weather conditions. For a user to do that on a regular basis, how would that person do? I'm walking the, what do you call, the extra mile that a user
Mm,
normally walks. Came back, I literally, had to, take some precautions and medical attention for the situation that came afterwards. But it gave insights into what really the people go through when they
mm,
are supposed to do in case of an emergency, even if it's a
mhm.
consumer product, for that matter. The other
Right.
one is during the pandemic. 31st of March 2020, the world started shutting down, even India, the government organized that. Within 1 month, there was a huge panic, and March to April, you finish. First week of May, a friend of mine who's the managing director at one of the largest insurance companies in India, HDFC Argo, he reached out and we were supposed to do some project too. He said, "Here's the problem. A lot of people are reaching out. Call centers have closed down. Everybody, there's nobody around here. How do we solve this problem?" So it was the first project that we did at scale, where 150,000 plus active daily users, which were growing rapidly, had to be reached on self-service. That they could reach the call,
Mm,
the panic. That, do I have insurance, or can I have access to this? All of that. We had all the stakeholders, right from super technical people to the managing director, the chief digital officer, the board. Everybody humbled themselves, came together, and kudos to HDFC Argo. We are, I'm not. They didn't ask. They didn't pay me to say this, but kudos to them. Uh, they did an amazing job of empowering everybody. They didn't get in our way. They didn't get in the way of their people, and the leaders just empowered, and we were able to complete something that ideally would have taken a year in 3 months. Yeah, and it won the strategic award in Europe, by the way.
wow, this is amazing. And the, imagine the delight of the end consumer, right? An industry that has been historically so difficult to work with.
Very difficult.
Uh, Imagine the days of LICs of the world and United India and all of that. And now that you have this super delightful, uh, almost no friction way to deal with this, it's amazing. And that gets me thinking. See, when the HDFC go and their leaders trusted you with that as the design partner to be able to
They
do
trusted
this,
all of us, by the way. Their team and
the entire team. What is the role of design, you think, or the designer in crafting business strategies at the highest levels? So I understand you said the goals are not fully evolved or baked when you start the process, but then as the senior leaders of the organization or leaders of or whatever initiative, they need to strategize to some point, and how design plays a role in that process of crafting a strategy.
actually, there's a anecdote I use. In fact, I use a picture. Zubin Mehta. I don't know if you heard of, or conductor of a symphony. Have you seen? They have the little
Right.
stick, and they
Yeah.
do. So there are all these, hundreds of excellent musicians in groups, categories. Some of them single. They do. The designer's role is somewhat like that, or the coach on the field. You
Hmm.
have to be hands on at the same time hands off, to just let people
Right.
give that little twist and say, okay, do it. And only the person who knows that twist will do. Rest of them will keep quiet. So that is
Right.
the kind of a role of a designer. To
Hmm.
even in HDFC Ergo, my role and my colleague's role, who works with me, we just enable people at different levels, and I just step back, and even the leaders, and thankfully the design thinking that we used initially to identify and go specific to the problem, we took that to implement. We all played the role. The leadership played the role of just being the anchors to get in only when required. Let the team do their job. They were all in real good sync. You add the grease only when there's a little bit of squeaking sound, right? Otherwise, you let the engines run.
Right. And it's so beautiful when you feel so much empowered about being a designer. And I've worked with a lot of designers myself in my field, right? But most of it is approached transactionally, right?
Sadly, yeah.
But when I hear you say a designer can be the conductor of the symphony or be a coach of a team who kind of you know call designs the play, but then lets the team kind of figure out, being a coach from the sidelines, right? Figure out what needs to happen on the ground. So I think this push and pull dance that the designer has to do with whether it is the team's manager, or it's the quarterback, or the defensive back, whoever that is, right? I think the role, looking at the role of a designer as a coach or a conductor, is very beautiful. I've not worked with many designers who've seen themselves that way, per se, right? I wonder why. I mean, is it because of lack of awareness about what the role can impact, or is it? What do you think it is?
The problem is, even I faced it when I was beginning, is the letting go. So designers normally
Ah,
don't let go of the design that they have and let it. It's like you children find it difficult to let their children go and live by themselves when they have to go to college or work, right? Very difficult,
right.
particularly in India. So in US it's different. In 17 year you're kicked out. 18 year, I mean, and you go live your life, kind of a thing. Not really everywhere, but on a lighter
Yeah.
side of things. I'm talking about this. No
Right.
offense to anybody. So the first problem is holding up to your design and not letting it, prove itself. Because
Mm,
if it is what you think it is, it'll survive and it'll make its way right through. That is very important to look at that. And the other one, although I gave you the example and you loved, I know you loved. Look at it, really. There's a movie I don't remember, about a drummer and his coach and how difficult that coach is. Actually, all coaches are very difficult, because they pull some people, they really give them a sound, strict guidance, or probably, I don't shout, but I'm just saying, you get down to real grassroots levels of fearful discussion sometimes, and you want to be on the team, you want to be in the part of the challenges you're solving. So conductor or a coach is really hard. At the same time, they're like a parent, and guiding and bringing them on and off. So that is very important for designers. If that is done, you're set free, because in your mind you're not holding on to design. The portfolio you do, okay, as a startup, when you're starting your career, it's fine. But when you're mature, 5-10 years later, it's always a collective way, and it's how you have impacted to let the design be successful. Others, it'll be like that Coursera experience I told you, or that
right.
imploded version of something. And there are hundreds other products, which Blackberries and
Mm.
Nokias and whatnot, which prove that the people held back. They didn't want to ask people. They want to talk. They say, okay, what I say is the right thing. That actually is not the right thing.
It's fantastic. I think the idea of letting go to for the design to take life, kind of bring it to life, is very powerful. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Design on its own is meaningless unless it is brought to life, and there
Correct.
is the village that needs to come together for that, right? And also, one more thing I'm thinking, as a coach or as a conductor, it's important for you to understand the strengths and limitations of all the players and their
Absolutely.
roles, and which player to use in what play, when to play the drum, or the bass guitar, or whatever, right? The analogy. It also means that being able to constantly mentor the team, while being a coach and calling the play and being able to empower them. It's also important while off the field, um, mentoring them, and working on the limitations or honing the strengths and all of that. Is it also part of the designer's job, you think, or am I taking it too far?
No, you're right. Absolutely right there, PJ. Because what happens is, if I didn't, so what needs to be done? Let's talk about that. As a designer, as you, okay, you're going to be off, but you're also at the same time in trend, hands on, and you're guiding people. How will you guide if you have no knowledge? So
Right.
it is very important for a designer, and the age is not there, by the way. By the time you're 6 months to a year in experience, anybody can be designer. We established that, right? Second is constantly being updated on what can be applied,
Right.
not the whole thing that today digital media supplies you on your phone, right? But to see, okay, for my specific role, what is it that I want to build the skill. So teaching yourself also is very important. If anybody feels that they've learned, no, that's the end of their career. So no,
Mm.
I know it all, I'm done. No, no, I used to do hand drawn fonts before the age of computers, and take them on
Wow.
camera and build happy birthday. And I used to work for Hallmark, and it used to take probably a whole day to write that just happy birthday, in a particular style, because you have to make it this big H, and then finally it is so small, and there's a whole process. I'll skip that. But the idea is that from those days to today, Just giving a prompt driven design and AI producing a picture for you, is so many, paradigm shifts and closures of businesses that I've seen in my own life. So, like for example, 3 months ago, I hard trained myself with some coaching from people who are experts to
Mm.
form my own GPT. Means
Mm.
a clone version of the way I would design or the way I would write, putting my data,
Right.
of course, on a private server and all of that things, privacy or how that is to be
Yeah.
done, just to
You
learn
created
how
a
this
custom
works.
GPT or something. Yeah.
Yeah, custom GPT, paid version, how it works, buying GPU, CPU, all of those things, and saying, okay, if I do this solutioning for somebody else, can I just talk off my heart because I read about GPT 0, 40 or 40 as of 2 3 days
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
or
Just
could
came
do
out
that
like a day
quick.
or two back.
I sound good, okay, I have a lot of knowledge, but if somebody says, okay, here's a project, do it, I shouldn't be shocked or saying, okay, who do I run to? Hey,
Right.
PJ, can you do this? No. So it's very important to train and be resilient. That's where the difference comes for the designer and coaches. That you go back, you
Mm.
learn, and then you come and you can do the job. I don't know if I've
Mm.
answered your question there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So there are two aspects to off the field learning. One is the designer themselves kind of upskilling and constantly evolving, and then the designer also enabling the teams to constantly upskill and
It's
evolve
like
in their
watching
roles.
playoffs or some other music to see
Yeah,
how it's done by others. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And these are very. It just makes sense. This is simple. It feels obvious, but it's not prevalent. How are you taking these ideas of what it means to be a good designer, all these ideas that we just talked about? How are you taking it to the world of design, mostly the younger up and coming designers who are aspirational about being a good designer? I know we talked about you're starting this academy, uh, and all of that, and you also mentor a lot of designers. Talk a
Startups.
little bit about that, how
Yeah,
we are
sure.
doing that.
Yeah, so what we learn from our lives, if it is if it's passed on to others, because street learning is very different from academic and lab learning. I've learned everything on the street. When I say street, is literally hands-on, making mistakes, burning, cutting, literally physically cutting my hands and getting burned with materials I'm testing to to whatever I'm doing today. So putting all of those together, applicable design is very important than theoretical design. Theoretical design, you go to the academics and keep doing it. No worries about that. That's good. It's required. But the larger people want to get a job, be able to apply. It's very important. So what a couple of years ago, and this was also during the pandemic, a very dear friend of mine, I think I can quote him. His name is Suhas Bendre from Cognizant. He's now in another company. He came up with the idea. We've studied together at some point, and then he continued to be a excellent educator and application guy. And I went back to the streets. So uh, he came up with a unique challenge of putting various people that they hired into one sound methodology or one thought, instead of saying I learned this, and 20 people going with 20 different processes to a customer in a big team was a
Hmm.
problem. So what we did is we defined completely new courses that would empower people with first with the methodology, the real true science of cognitive science, which is brain related, and things, tools and things like that they could apply immediately. Immediately means the
Hmm.
last day of the course, next Monday they had to go to a project. So
Wow.
we found that the courses we built were actually we took some time, about 2 3 months to build those courses, but those courses empowered a lot of people and made them confident. People who couldn't
Hmm.
speak, we had people who had stammering problem or some mental health issues. Every one of them were able to use, apply, build together, work as a team in whatever roles they could and whatever they could pick up, because it covers a
Wow.
whole gamut of things. That and the other one was Singapore government's training and teaching the traditional bankers, the bankers, to become digital savvy. So again, we use human-centered design for fintech and digital banking, and build courses for the Singapore government. For 3 years, we've been training again and again a lot of fresh people that come in, and they are all like between 45 to 58, 60 years old students in our classes, that we
Wow.
taught. That gave
I wouldn't have
rise to
guessed
the
that.
thought. Yeah, that gave rise to the thought about, why not we start an academy? So we registered and I built an academy which is registered with the San Francisco County. There's also a startup university in the seedling stage, and the idea is to make more people learn design. And this came with another excellent design leader, a good dear friend of mine, Hannes Robbio from the university. He teaches in University of Vienna and FH Johannem in Graz, Austria. And there we formed something. He was the founder. I joined the board called User Experience Quality Certification. Basically, taking a set of tools and academic backed accredited material to enable you, even you or anybody, to learn the process and apply design. It's called UXQCC. So,
Wow.
with these academic initiatives, what I'm trying to do is build that resilience for people who have fear of losing jobs or the
Hmm.
things that happen today every day. But design is one thing with people, and all that we talked about today uh, will help almost anybody pick up new skills or apply these in their own domain, so that you
Hmm.
become more empathetic. You understand the science behind how the eye moves, for example, or what happens when a certain way a font is used to read, the psychological aspects, the things like that, and also empathy and
Hmm.
the parts to human centered design.
Amazing. And
Apologies if it's too much of jargon, but these
no,
are
no, I
initiatives.
think no, I think it's. I don't think you're using too much of jargon. I think these are fairly straightforward even for a layman to understand. But what you're doing is amazing, Vivian, because from what I'm hearing, it feels like you don't even have to be a designer or aspire to be a designer to take your course. You could just become a better, more effective person by taking the course.
I have to add one thing. Sorry about that. Is that we are not doing those today courses just like that. We have a 90-day to a year program. So
Hmm.
you just don't come because there are a lot of these quickie courses and you really don't learn anything from there. 2 days boot camp and you're a UX designer. It's impossible. I spent 25 plus years and I still don't
Right.
know. So we go the long haul, and the people that we train in 2020 are still on our campus, learning, working, being mentored, and things like that. So
Hmm.
that's very important part.
Hmm. So as you're developing the aspiring designers, you've designed these very specific courses. You mentioned cognitive science, you mentioned empathy, um, and it got me thinking. And my thought for a moment went back to your example when you said you spent the whole day writing happy birthday, right? Um, See, I think what I see there, Vivian, is that you care. You didn't have to spend the whole day. I could write it in 5 minutes, maybe even if I have to do it really beautifully, maybe 2 hours. But spending the whole day to write happy birthday with such care for that craft, that doesn't come, with teaching in some way, right? Maybe you can coach people to care, but it's more of developing an attitude towards the world around you and the things that you are looking to change, right? So let's talk a little bit about the parts of the aspects of being a good designer that doesn't come from automation, that doesn't come from technological advancements. It's just comes from being the person you are and becoming a better person you can be. What are those? I don't want to call it soft skills because I don't really like that term. They are not really. It somehow diminishes the value of those skills. They are core skills. Let me put it that way. What are those for you? And what would you say for
Yeah,
the aspiring designers? The things that
absolutely.
they
There
should
are there
develop.
are very few. Probably you can count on one hand. The number one skill I always tell people is the one that you're born with: observation. You know, be so
Mm,
super sharp at observing that you should be a consistent and constant sniper all your life, not to shoot but to
mm,
just be able to look at and train your eyes. It takes time. I learned that in my print, and that happy birthday experience, actually why the whole day is because right from painting it and seeing there's one bump in the thing, again repainting it, making bromides, working under the camera, then making films, reducing them slowly, 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 and coming down to the small factor and making sure that it's as good as a print level. then making all other sub processes from there on also. That's what took the whole day. But coming back, it is very important to keep in mind that as a good designer, your number one skill is observation, from according to me. Uh, and with today's attention economy, I think I'm actually proud of that one skill. With attention deficiency everywhere, if you're an observer, you can do things in a snap of a finger. That's one.
Hmm.
The second one, again, a huge problem, and I also face that sometimes. I apologize. Is ability to listen, engaged, engaged listening. Otherwise, what happens is either most people are in listening to respond, or listening to what do you call defend, or listening to judge. You just should listen with no biases. And the problem with designers is when they're listening and observing. I have also been there, done that. Is you start solutioning. Oh, this problem, fix this. Oh, this is not working, do this. Or here's the design. Instead of going and taking a seat back and really research, finding out what and why is that happening, instead of the solution mindset. I think even Jugaad, the Indian concept of fixing things, is to blame, or probably we are all built like that. But this
Hmm.
designer's perspective that, let me fix with the design, is worldwide. Uh,
Hmm.
Quickly come with a sketch, and here's a solution for you. Uh, and so then what's happened is UI is taken front end, wherein UI, I think, uh, is an automated or a tool based task in today's times, unlike my happy birthday days. So yeah, I know somehow it's stuck there. But anyway, so it is very important. So observation, listening attentively without judging, and putting things that you learn to practice, trying it out in your privacy. These three things will help you then master the craft and come out. Like, I cut my hand. I love cooking, which I picked up during the pandemic. Realize that tools are very important, but if you don't know how to use, you can like slice your hand and do some crazy things there. Same thing applies for design. So you learned a new tool, go, like, I didn't have to create a GPT, but I spent a lot of
Hmm.
our time, wasted a lot of resources, as of making those errors and seeing disastrous things come out. And they say, "Oh no, no, the world shouldn't see this. I have to delete this." And then perfecting that, and then saying, "Okay, who's an expert? Expert, whether it's a musician like A.R. Rahman, or Sachin Tendulkar, the brilliant cricketer, or whoever it is, yourself, for example, a podcaster. You've done this craft over and over and over. You know how to set up. You guided me, and then, with my stage fear and all that, you made me comfortable, and I'm speaking to you today now. So expert spends a lot of time practicing the craft, whether it's Sudhar in his, as leadership in social media, or the things that we are doing. That needs to be done by every designer, or every profession for that matter. You master your craft, you become untouchable. Technology
Right.
cannot replace you. Nothing can shake you off because you are resilient. So master your
Hmm.
craft, observe, listen, practice, perfect, and get out back there.
Wonderful. And there are a couple of more things that come to my mind. If it's okay, I would
Yeah,
like to
please,
share.
please. We're learning. You can.
And it's coming only because I'm seeing the whole conversation from a perspective of life, not just from a perspective of design. When you say you know observation, which is being mindful and being in the present here and now, and being able to observe, take in, soak in, and also listening without judging or having the urge to respond. There's also a couple of things that comes up for me, which is compassion, or empathy that you mentioned earlier. So for who we are serving, right? And maybe slightly related but not related is respect. Respect for the craft, and respect for, again, who we are serving, and what we are trying to do. I think this somewhat related to what you said, but also I would
No,
like
they're
to call
totally
it out because
related.
I
See,
think,
TJ, sorry to
yeah,
jump in there, but they're totally
yeah,
related. Because, I didn't speak about it, but you put the words right there correctly. Without passion and empathy, how are you going to sit by yourself and do? I sit for hours painting, maybe 1 inch by 1 inch, so small. Today also
yeah.
sometimes as a hobby, but now I don't do that. Or I'm working with paper crafts just by myself. It's not that I need to produce that or make money out of it. It's just that that passion has to be fed. So I also tell the other thing, feed your intelligence, so feed your intellect, because today, youngsters particularly, or not only youngsters, most people are on all kinds of apps on their phone, and it's really not adding value to them. It's just discussing trends or some fake news or unverified information, and that really, the whole domino
Too
effect
much
that just
noise in
yeah.
up there.
Without passion and empathy, it's just not possible. And passion can
Right.
be built if you keep doing.
Yeah.
Initially, when you learn to play guitar, your hands bleed and you get angry. But once you know it and people say, "Wow, great job," then you get
Yeah.
more in this thing. I'm sure if we talk to musicians, they'll tell you a lot more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I think these are not just for design. I think these are valuable traits to develop for any human being, anybody who wants to be more effective personally, right? Um, awesome. So there is one thing that I don't think they are related: art and design. So um, both are very creative process, and both require discipline. While design is designing something is to create a conceptual picture of something useful, or to make something better and more preferred way. Art is for art's sake. So is there anything, are they connected at all in a way? Because to me, every time I think about a design, I think of also
Visual.
form is important. I mean, the function is important, but there is also the form factor, there is this creative aspect, the aesthetics and all of that. So does a designer also need to be a good artist, like have a sense of artistry in them?
Yeah, it depends on what you're a designer. If you just use the word designer, let's look at some of them and maybe you can jump in and add fashion designer, graphic
Hmm.
designer, studio designer, sound designer, uh, plating designer for a chef, for example, who plates
Yeah,
things.
architecture design. Yeah.
Yeah, architectural design. So design per se is not contained. It's what you design. You could be even
Hmm.
a designer who's designing a process in an Excel sheet as an accountant to cut short hours or days of work into maybe a pivot table or something that they've done behind the scene. One of my cousins is very good at it. I wonder how I can never imagine anybody being passionate about Excel sheets, but he is. And he solves things like days of works in matter of seconds. So
Hmm.
he's a designer, he's passionate. So similarly, all that you said about art and design is true in its own places. At the same time, there is, uh,
Some overlap. Yeah.
if you look at the old saying, no, beauty in the eye of the beholder, right?
Right.
So behold your career, whatever it is, and you add design and the passion of the craft. It is the craft finally. Even if it's a service
Hmm.
industry, you enter a cafe and you feel good, and people make you feel good. It has been crafted. It's an unseen interface, but it makes you feel good. An art is visual because it feeds certain brain neurons and fires some activities in the brain to make you feel good. Art and craft are part of design at all times. At the same time, they are fully right in their domain independently as well. I'm an artist. I also paint and draw. I do a lot of craft work, but I'm using technology where it has zero user interface at times. It's just
Right.
solving a process problem.
Right. Right. Wow. Amazing. Now, Vivian, I want to shift gears, move to a different zone. I want to talk about Vivian,
Oh,
right?
nice.
You have traveled extensively. You said you've started out in the streets, right from fixing that, creating that visual in the small window of the jewelry store when you were 16, along with your brother, which anecdote you shared earlier in the conversation, to where you are today. You've seen a lot of changes, a lot of shifts, geographically, professionally, technological advancements. It's just too much to take in for me. How do you keep up?
Those are just stories now, many of them. Memorable stories. I don't keep up with them. They just, they come up when I'm reminded. One another thing is, I mean, this everybody who's close to me knows it also. I'm not into newspaper reading, all that is good. Somebody will always tell you what's right and all that if there's an announcement. But I don't read newspaper at all.
Hmm.
I keep myself uh, as low as possible on information. My primary source is the Bible. I read that every day. Uh, from proverbs to things that make me deal correctly or properly with people.
Mm.
With no bias to religion. I'm not religious, so taking that. The other thing is very thanks to the internet, very specific sources of what I need to learn. Uh, in factoring tools or automation or AI, whatever is in trend, reading and making sure that I'm part of that. These are the two ways of keeping up. The second one is interacting and mingling with people and hearing their experiences and stories. I have not like learned everything, neither will I do all through the life that I'm here. Mm. But it is people I'm learning from you, for example. I've never done this before. It's the first time. Second time, first one was casual and was more on the learnings of the Bible and how that has impacted my life. This is more on the profession and me. So it's important to travel light, I think, because as you said, I've traveled a lot, and initially I used to have. Just to give you an anecdote, we used to carry, even me and my colleague, we used to carry almost 150 kilos of checked-in luggage. Can you believe?
Yeah, I remember. We all do that,
No,
early on,
this was
right?
equipment, by the way. This is equipment.
Equipment. Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I've carried
people,
150 kilos of my own stuff.
no, not my own stuff. My stuff is less than 10, 12 kgs. I don't, personally have very little things. But this was all equipment, and we got caught by a particular government in the Middle East saying that we are, dangerous people because we have electronic
Wow.
equipment that could be for espionage. So we had to convince them that no, we are researchers and we are going to set up a mobile lab and get these things used for that. And the 300 meters of cable that I'm carrying was for a particular cause, and it is a special type and blah blah. This is before mobile phones, 2006 or something like that. But coming back, uh, that experience is now historic as a story only. Is to travel light, even in your mind. I
That's
think that's how
beautiful.
you can keep it. Yeah,
Yeah, I will never forget this. I think the metaphor of traveling light. I used to be a heavy traveler. I think both figuratively and literally. I used to carry, two large suitcases. I lived in the States for 10 years, and every time I used to visit back and forth, I used to carry this, max out the entire check-in. What was allowed. But I've changed. I think I've
but PJ, look at it this way.
begin big.
Look at it this way. I know I'm interrupting you here because it's
Yeah,
very important on the travel light. That is the physical one. But if you look at our mental status today, mental health problems are more than when we were growing up, or even when you were growing up. Probably you never heard of them so much. There are special columns now on mental health.
yeah.
People carry a lot of load in their minds, whether it's professionally, personally, and personal affects profession. Even if you say keep your personal away from your profession, I have not
No, they're
seen that.
they're tightly connected. You
Very,
can't
very
separate
connected.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So traveling light in the mind is so important. Forgiving people, for example, you talk to
right.
some particularly people who are irritable and things like that. They have bad experiences that make them the way they are. They're not bad people. Bad experiences or bitterness that they're carrying for somebody who's moved on and become a better person, still carrying on the past of that person, saying that oh, these people are like that, or and things like that. So I think those all also count to, because finally you have to be completely peaceful, travel light, and then apply, because you'll have enough power to focus on your career, tools, skills, whatever you want to do as a
This
designer
is
or
beautiful.
as a professional.
Yeah, this is very beautiful. Very beautiful. I think I will remember this. I'm sure the whoever is listening to this will remember this, to travel light in your mind. And it's easier said than done. Also,
Very
Vivian,
difficult.
right? Because it's very hard to uh, let go of the baggage that we
I'm glad you
carry,
said that.
and either emotional baggage or informational overload, unlearning. All of these are easier said than done. And I think, you put it out there. I think it's a first step for people who have been heavy travelers mentally, to kind of take that first step, to start, one at a time, right? Start shedding things.
It's very difficult. My colleague Sabina, she teaches on declutter, and it just brought to my mind decluttering, which is a favorite subject, and she's a guru at it, is so hard. So
Yeah,
mentally also to remove, it's not very easy as you said. It
yeah.
takes time, but
It takes time. It takes
but the
time. It
progress is
takes
really good. The spring cleaning should not be only in spring; should be weekly, I think.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do that weekly cleaning and decluttering. Absolutely, and you do it one thing at a time. Take deliberate and consistent effort, and most importantly, get help. I think the value of there is this book that my son used to read when he was much younger, like 7 or 8. It's called "The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse" or something.
I think I've heard about that.
A very beautiful picture book, and uh, the horse will ask the boy, "What is the bravest thing you've done?" And the boy would say, "Ask for help." So it was very touching, that particular exchange. And I think asking for help doesn't mean you're quitting. Asking for help means that you don't want to quit. You want to keep going on, uh, even with getting help. I think that's something which is important in the process of decluttering, in the process of losing the baggage. Sometimes we just need that one conversation where we can just like get it out of the system, and and that would be a good starting point to start losing the baggage.
Absolutely, asking for help makes you human actually. But
Yeah,
just to be on the conscious for people who are listening, I have this term called Google generation. Is basically asking for help doesn't mean go to the phone and start typing. It's not going to give you
yeah.
everything correct. Talk to a real human being. Yeah, talk to your
Yeah,
parents, friends, spouses, best
absolutely.
friend, whoever it is. Talk to a human being.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think no human experience has been less rich. Any Just about any conversation enriches me, right? It could be about as simple as I don't know, the quality of tea served in this local tea shop, but then I just there's just so much takeaway in how people see the world. In every conversation, so happens they see the world somewhat differently than I do, and
absolutely.
that creates perspectives, right, for us.
Yeah. If I can share one quick story, I was traveling around in this last few weeks, right? I was in
Mm.
Kerala meeting Vimal from Gen Robotics here, young fellow, done a real good work, a lot of work. We had the choice of having tea at the five star or his office, and he said, "I'll take you to a place where we used to go as college students." I said, "That's the place. Let's go." And he drove, and we went there. You know, the, the fellow was making tea
Yeah.
like that in Kerala. And what amazing! It was not the tea, but the experience. Me and
Yeah,
Vimal talking there, chatting about things, and there's no air. Nobody knew who we were, and him or me, and we just reminisced that moments which he remembered of his college days, and that
right.
changed so many things. So you're so right
Fantastic.
there, PJ. So right.
Amazing, amazing. And I think one of the conversations we had earlier, you mentioned you always take public transport. What's up with that? Is it
Well,
is it just for the convenience, or is there any larger
yeah, no, I don't
reason
want to
for it?
be part of the one of that honking and getting angry or making somebody else angry. That's one part. Second is public transportation is a lot of ease of use actually, as much as is available to you. I live in a place where I have at least 7 or 8 ways of public transportation. I have a train that goes straight to the airport, for example. So
Mm,
why go and add one more car to the clutter, right? So
right.
as much as possible. I stopped owning vehicle in other places. I do have here in India, but otherwise I stopped owning. I do promote some um sustainable transportation, for example. Uh,
Mm,
but the idea is to to be more independent. And there are a lot of advantages I have seen when I travel around the world, that point A to point B becomes easy because point C and D is easy connect than trying to find where to park my car or worry about something else.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. I think fantastic conversation so far,
Thank
Vivian.
you so much, PJ. You
Is
made
this
it.
a good time to bring it to a landing? I
Yes.
think. What would you like to tell me and our audience? From Vivian Gomes as a designer and as a mentor and as a human being.
I think be good human beings. Yeah, we have to be all that. I live the Christ life, which is, the crucified and resurrected. The whole thing on the cross for me is basically, to what level can you go for your friend? Uh, it's very hard. Easier said than done. Everybody worships and forms that into religion, but there is such a lot of lessons from there. Uh,
Mm,
and giving that, love your neighbor as yourself. Easier said than done. Or, when we say a prayer in Christians, we've learned, and I'm sure some of them may not like what I'm saying, is forgive us my sins as we forgive others. I don't know if you've heard that line, but if we forgive others like, if we ask God's forgiveness or divine forgiveness for the way we forgive, then it's going to be a disaster, because our is season to season, maybe between two events, and it's not very easy. So these are tough things to do, but easier if you start today over time and apply that to your life. That's
right.
one. Travel light. All of us should do that. I try to do it. The other factor we didn't talk about, but I have seen immense power in that, PJ, and I think I would like to conclude with that, is give. Uh, give people, and don't be shy. People are not looking at advantages. Give people your time, effort, some money, and without being asked, because the joy that you get, nothing can match that. Absolutely nothing. Go the
Yeah.
extra mile to give to people. A lot of people need many things. They need your advice or your skill, or very rarely people ask money, by the way. Yeah? Seriously speaking,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
but they need a lot of you. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. Your colleagues needs you. Or there are things that you have collected that you no longer use. So I have this simple policy: 3 to 6 months. If I don't use some personal belongings, I give it
Give
away.
it away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like shoes, it could be clothes, it could be literally anything. But if I'm using
Yeah.
them daily, then they're something that I use. But if I don't use it, it has even been expensive materials, but I give it away. I've given away scooters, cars, bikes,
Wow.
also in the past. Yeah. But the idea is not
Incredible.
about,
Amazing.
you just go into today empty a house. It's about giving. Very important in
Mm,
today's time, where there's so dearth of people's time. I think we can give time at least. And today we've done precious time. You taught me. You got me comfortable on this talk. I'm pretty shy actually. I'm not so extrovert. I speak at conferences, but that's closed environment, specific people. This is first time going
right.
out there in public domain. I'm grateful to you. So that's all I have
No,
to
no,
say.
it's been my pleasure, Vivian. I think it was a very eye opening conversation in a lot of different uh, perspectives, right? Talking about design, talking about human centered, talking about design thinking, and how it has evolved for you, and how we have concluded in the last few minutes about being human and traveling light. It's beautiful. I think one of the best conversations I've had,
Thank you so much.
and for our viewers, obviously, if with your permission, maybe I can share when we publish this. I can share how they can get in touch with you through your website.
Oh, sure. They can. I'm
Uh,
always responsive on LinkedIn.
right,
Probably my only social media that I'm on, and I make it a point. So I have zero inbox and mail in my LinkedIn. I make it a point to respond. Doesn't matter who it is. So feel free to reach out,
wonderful,
and if I have time, we can do a one-on-one also.
fantastic, amazing. Thank you so much, Vivian. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Yeah.